Once again, welcome everybody, excuse me, to our Sunday morning meditation group. We've always called it SSG, Sunday Sitting Group, but not everybody is sitting. Some people may be reclining, some people may be standing up. So it's actually our Sunday morning meditation group. And actually, for many of you, it's not even a morning meditation group. But we meet at this time on Sundays, wherever you are. And my name is Trudy. I'm the founding teacher here at InsightLA. And InsightLA recently went through this past summer just a catastrophic collapse due to various factors, but mostly some I would have to say some mismanagement, but nothing terrible like stealing or anything, just sort of not knowing how to make it work. And it has regrouped and reconstituted in a new form, which I'm actually quite happy about. And even though right now this is the only thing I'm teaching there, I continue to, look after in the ways that I can what really is sort of like my child. Even though it has launched and gone its own way, it has regrouped in an all volunteer basis. I think they have now one paid staff member, and teachers are getting paid by donation instead of by salary. And so all of this, I think, will contribute to healthier organization going forward. So for us today, I want to do the traditional land acknowledgement. I am here in Los Angeles on the unceded lands. All of us who are living in LA are living on the unceded lands of the indigenous people who were here taking care of this land for thousands of years before we got here. And so we just offer a kind of silent bow of respect and gratitude for their guardianship. And by doing the land acknowledgement, which is done very routinely in Canada and Australia, we're just also acknowledging, and I think it's very important, this week is Indigenous Peoples Week, because Thanksgiving, of course, is a day of mourning for the indigenous people, while it's a day of gratitude and celebration and feasting for many of us. And it's just to acknowledge and offer our respect, to acknowledge that this land was taken, not given. And that actually is against one of our mindfulness trainings, the Buddhist precept of not taking what isn't given. But here we are, so we at least can acknowledge our ancestors here on this land. So today I'm going to continue the teachings that we began last week, the teachings of Atisha. And for those of you who may be new to this group, we spend approximately we divide it approximately into thirds. First, we meditate, which we're about to do. Then we have some teaching, and then some chance for interaction and dialogue with each other. So thank you all so much for being here. And I always say, let's sit together. Let's meditate together. So beginning by taking 3 deep breaths, cleansing breaths, deep breath in and releasing. And one more time, taking an intentionally deep breath in and relaxing with the out breath, totally relaxing. And another deep breath in. And just releasing any tension in the body as we breathe out. And allowing the breath to breathe in its own natural rhythm as we settle into being here. And just appreciating the way that the breath breathes us, that it's not something we have to do. We can be grateful for this ebb and flow of life. And maybe calling to mind as we settle into being here some of the things, very simple things of our life to be grateful for. This breath, the aliveness of this moment. Just allowing the breath to slow, to gently deepen, become smoother. And noticing when you call to mind whatever you're grateful for, just noticing the ease, the relaxation this brings to the whole body, to your whole being. And just very simply bringing your attention to your hearing, to the sounds of life around you, and noticing the ability to hear. Just offering some thanks to your ears for letting you hear. And noticing your sense of smell, appreciating your nose for letting you smell, to smell the ocean air or your baby's hair, and especially if you've had COVID, just grateful for being able to smell. You can bring attention to your tongue and your mouth. Be grateful for your taste buds to be able to enjoy nourishment. Grateful to your lips for talking and kissing and just grateful for the sense of taste, tasting the flavors of life. Noticing what you feel with your skin, the sense of touch, the clothes on your skin. And being grateful for the skin that lets you feel the texture of the world. It lets you feel warmth and coolness, and the pleasure of touch. Thank you, skin. And bringing attention to the eyes. And whether your eyes are closed or gently looking down, just surrounding your eyes with gratitude for the magic of being able to see. And however much you're able to see with your eyes, just thanking them for letting you connect with others and see the beauty of nature and all we love. And as you breathe in, notice how you feel in your heart. Connect to what you're feeling, maybe a sensation of warmth or softening or expansion, as you allow yourself to appreciate all your senses. And anytime you get distracted, just moving your body back ever so slightly into this posture of receptivity. And from this posture of receiving the moment, sending gratitude to every single being, every single person you have encountered in your life so far, or will encounter in the future. Every single person shows you something, teaches you something. Offering thanks. And you can take a deep intentional breath and connect with this moment, this particular moment in all eternity. Offering your gratitude for everything in your life that allows you to be here, meditating right now. Offering thanks to the circumstances that give you the chance to sit in stillness and be grateful. Grateful for your health and whatever your health condition may be, as long as you are here breathing. There's more right with you than wrong with you. To the health and well-being that make it possible to practice, to learn, to grow and wisdom and love. You can bring your hands to your heart and let the corners of your mouth turn up into a smile as we end this meditation with gratitude, noticing how it feels, and setting the intention to bring this gratitude forward into your whole week. So last week we began studying the what are called the Lojong slogans. Lojong in Tibetan means mind training. And these slogans were first learned by a great meditation teacher and scholar, a scholar practitioner in the 11th century named Dipankara Atisha. And Atisha actually learned these practices not in the great Buddhist universities of Nalanda and Vimla, I forget the name of the other one, anyway. Not in the great universities in India in the Middle Ages, but in Sumatra, which I found very interesting. Atisha was Bengali. Actually, I think he was born in Chittagong, which is now Bangladesh, but then it was Bengal. And he was born there, and he became this very great scholar practitioner, and he was asked to come teach in Tibet. Buddhism had come to Tibet in the 8th century, but it wasn't being taught in very practical ways, the way that Atisha was teaching. And so people really wanted him to come to Tibet. But he was already in his mid-50s, and he didn't speak Tibetan, and he really wasn't into it. He just felt like he was too old to travel and make a trip like that, and with all that effort. Sure, we can relate. I can relate to that feeling. And but then the king of whatever kingdom he was living in was abducted, and I don't remember all the historical details. I just remember the story. It was so really quite moving. The king was abducted, and the ransom price was as much gold as his head, the weight of his head. that his son had to gather that much gold to set his father free. So he actually went around and he gathered that much gold and he brought it. And his father said, "You know what? I'm old already. It doesn't matter about me. Take that gold to Atisha and tell him, you know, that I've offered this to him, that I'm making this offering so that he will be able to take the teachings to Tibet." So of course the son went to Atisha, and when Atisha learned that his father had sacrificed his life so that the Dharma could be brought to Tibet, you know, of course he had to go. And this is something we can all be grateful for, because these slogans are so good for our practice. You can call, I mean, there are 59 of them. You can find Jamgon Kongtrul's version, which is 37 of them, a great meditation master of, I believe, the one who put them into 37. I think it was the 19th century, could have been the 20th, I'm not certain. And so there's many of them, and my favorite book, actually, if you want to really go through them as a practice systematically, we did that 1 year in our Deepening Your Practice class, is by Norman Fisher. And I love that Norman Fisher came to InsightLA to teach from this book. He's a Zen teacher. These teachings are from Tibetan Buddhism, and our center is a Theravada, you know, an early Buddhist tradition, meditation center. Anyway, you can look up Norman's book on compassion, which is the book on these Lojong slogans. But they're great because when something comes up, you know, our natural habitual reaction is to something negative is, of course, negative, which it doesn't have to be. We just think it does. Can remind yourself. I often will remind myself of one of the slogans, and I'll read the ones, the sort of 8 primary ones that I read last week. I'll just read them again this week. We obviously aren't going to go through all of them this week, but we'll maybe focus on the gratitude since it is Thanksgiving week. We spoke, I think, more about the first one last week, which is consider all experience, all phenomena to be dreams. And the most accessible way to understand this one is to look back on something that happened to you last week, last year, in your childhood, and notice that it has that same dreamlike quality as remembering an actual dream. Where is that experience now? Where are all the phenomena that surrounded that experience now? The second one is be grateful to everyone. And I have to confess, you know, I mean, as a human being, yes, of course, I have had grudges in my heart. And I love this one because it reminds me that even, you know, one of the teachers that I may have mentored and trusted, or an ED that I gave everything, you know, my whole heart to support, may not have done what I wish they would have done. Let's just leave it like that. And I have had grudges about these things. And then I just remind myself, this person, these people, whoever it may be, you can think of your own life, they are my greatest spiritual teachers. Not because they taught me some fancy, you know, high level state of meditation or consciousness, but because they pointed me to where I get stuck, to my own patterns of entitlement, of expecting people to do what I think they should do, or trained them to do, or blah, 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 taught them. So be grateful to everyone, even, and, you know, especially actually to the people who aggravate you, because they're showing you your patterns. You know, yesterday I co-taught, Justine did most of the teaching because it's really her area of expertise. We taught a half-day workshop on connection and relationship, both intimate and also friendship, parent-child, any relationship, not just romantic partners. And she did a series of very simple exercises with the group that built on each other and really were designed to show you where you get stuck when you're connecting with somebody, what your patterns are of either warding off closeness or grasping for it, because the premise of all this work is how much we all long to be approved of and loved, how we long for connection and intimacy and, yeah, just friendship and warmth and love in our lives. And so be grateful to everyone. That slogan is a reminder. I don't have to go into my knee-jerk patterned reaction. You don't have to do that either. It's just a deeply ingrained, conditioned pattern. And that slogan, be grateful to everyone, is designed just like the exercises we did yesterday. And I think a couple of you, Lauren was there yesterday, I don't know who else, to cut through and allow us to see those patterns, because until we see them, there's no possibility to do something different. It's outside of our awareness. That's why I often teach, like, bring everything into your practice. Bring everything in, because the practice of awareness, hopefully some somewhat tenderized awareness, loving awareness, as Ram Dass called it, the practices of awareness are what empower us to improve our outlook. I mean, all of the Lojong slogans are about our attitude toward life. How do we keep our minds in any given moment? We talked about that a lot last week. How do you keep your mind right now? Just noticing, what kinds of thoughts are you thinking? What kinds of judgments are happening? What's going on in there? How are you keeping your mind right now? Then the third one, I mean, these are all challenging, right? Being grateful to the people who annoy you, being grateful to everyone. We're not going to go into politics. That's just too big of a stretch for right now. But don't be swayed by outer circumstances. I mean, this is a tall order. In one text, it says, when someone does something that makes you really angry, be like a block of wood. Now, that does not sound like a desirable state, right? Being numb and just, not very attuned is a block of wood. We all know people who are more like blocks of wood, but that's not, it's talking about the quality of a block of wood is smooth and it doesn't move. It's solid, it's stable. And to have that degree of stability and solidity in our presence, so that we're not knocked off balance every time, something happens in our outer circumstances that we, it could be something we don't like. It could be something very blissful too, that causes us to chase it and lose all our awareness. And the fourth one, don't brood over the faults of others. There is some kind of perverse satisfaction in brooding over the faults of others. You've probably experienced this. This is like picking a scab or something. You shouldn't do it, but there's just something about it. And so, just to remind ourselves when we catch ourselves doing that, I can't believe it. She said, he said, they said, blah, 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 blah. Just to remind yourself, is this beneficial? Is this leading to something beneficial for me? To ponder this, to brood over it, to, obsess about it? That's the criteria. It's not a moral issue. It's an issue of happiness or unhappiness, which I suppose moral issues deep down are, but we think of them more like shoulds. And then number 5, explore timeless awareness. Explore the nature of your own awareness. This is from Ajahn Sumedho. He says, awareness is your refuge. Awareness of the changingness of feelings, of attitudes, of moods. Stay with that. It's a refuge. He's saying stay with the awareness of the changes. It's a refuge that is indestructible. This is not something that changes. like the breath, as long as we're alive. Awareness is always here. Maybe it's here after we pass away, I don't know. My friend Catalina had a huge stroke when she was 49 years old. She's fine today, but she wasn't fine. She was completely in a coma and could not see or hear or anything, but she was aware. And that experience taught her that awareness is always there. To her kids, to her husband, to her, to the doctors, to everybody in the hospital, she did not look aware, and she was not experiencing any of what was going on around her or even within her except awareness. So it's a refuge you can trust. It's not something you have to create. It's innate to all of us, maybe even to mosquitoes. I don't know why I mentioned mosquitoes, because I have killed mosquitoes in my life, quite a few. But they probably care about their life just as much as I care about mine. It's all they've got. So this refuge is not, he says it's not a creation, it's not an ideal, it's very practical and very simple, but easily overlooked and not noticed. When you're mindful, you're beginning to notice that it's like this, whatever the this is for you in this moment. So that's number 5, exploring the nature of awareness. And that goes with all the teachings of allowing suffering to teach us compassion, allowing impermanence to teach us wisdom, all of this. And then, that was number 6, I'm sorry. Let suffering teach you compassion. Number 7, at all times, simply rely on a joyful mind. Wow, at all times, simply rely on a joyful mind. I was going to read you a poem, but I'm going to tell you a story instead. Some of you have heard me tell this story because it was very formative for me. When I was young, I had a picture of the Dalai Lama from a newspaper called The Snow Lion that used to be a newspaper for the Tibetan Buddhist community. Now I think it's a big glossy magazine, but then it was just a print newspaper, and I had cut out a big picture of the Dalai Lama. It was on the front page of the paper, and it showed his young, smiling face, and he was saying, the caption was, "Maybe I am the last Dalai Lama. It's okay. There's nothing wrong." And, as a Jewish woman who, when I was young, the Holocaust was not way, way behind us. I'm 78 now, so, it wasn't that far behind. And I thought the Tibetan people are going through a Holocaust of their own in a different way, a kind of genocide of their culture for sure, and many of the people as well. And I thought, how can he say there's nothing wrong? What is the mind that would say that? But because he was the Dalai Lama and I was a young Buddhist student, I thought there must be something to it. And I put it up on the cupboard in the kitchen until it stayed there till it was all yellowed, with time. And in Cambridge, this was where I lived for so many years. And I realized he's really talking about how, with a different attitude, everything can be all right. It's not the all right of what you wish would happen. It's not the all right that it's okay for people to be murdered or die. It's the all right of, this is how it is right now, and I can be present with this, and I can be all right. And that served me so well when I had the huge breakup that catapulted me away from Cambridge, to just realize I may feel grief and agonizing sorrow, along with a host of other unpleasant emotions, and I can be all right. Right in the midst of it, I can be all right. And maybe my mind, I can't keep it joyful at all times, but I can be on the lookout for joy at all times, for a piece of art, for a poem, for a pretty sight, a smile of a person, something that uplifts your heart. And then number 8, we talked about some last week too. Don't expect a standing ovation. We want praise and recognition for what we do. We just want that as humans, and that's how we got socialized as children. So it's deeply ingrained in us to, look up at mom's face or dad's face or primary caregiver's face, grandparent, whoever it was, to see, how are you approving of me right now? Are you liking me? Are you mad at me? Do you love me? What's going on? From early age, this is what we are trained to look for. And the beauty of this slogan is, no matter how much good you have done or what generous, great thing you did, to offer to somebody, it's the expectation of the standing ovation. For me, I encounter this, with InsightLA. It's the expectation that an organization should say thank you. Well, they don't. They're organizations. They're made up of all kinds of people. It's the same for institutions. You may have worked there your whole life, and it's not necessarily going to say thank you. So as unpleasant as that may be to acknowledge, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's just freeing our hearts from the expectation. What is it they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think the road to hell is, or the road to resentment is paved with unmet, expectations. And this is a poem by Roger Keyes. Some of you may know this poem. It's called Hokusai, the great Japanese artist. Hokusai says, this is our practice, look carefully. He says, pay attention, notice. He says, keep looking, stay curious. He says, everything is alive. Shells, buildings, people, fish, mountains, trees. Wood is alive. Water is alive. Everything has its own life, and everything lives inside us. He says, live with the world inside you. It matters that you care. It matters that you feel. It matters that you notice. It matters that life lives through you. Look, feel, let life take you by the hand. Let life live through you. So these slogans may sound kind of abstract, but they are really, this is what they're pointing to our being able to live an embodied presence, a wholehearted presence, moment to moment. How are you keeping your mind right now, right this moment? Check in, take a look, see, how is it for you? Let's see what else I may have wanted to share with you before it's your turn, which is coming soon. Last week we did a Tonglen, taking and sending meditation. This week we did a gratitude meditation in honor of Indigenous Peoples Week and Thanksgiving. And I just want to say that, I really appreciate stories of people who've been able to do things that they weren't swayed by circumstances. They were able to do things anyway. And I recently heard the story. Sorry I didn't look up his name for you, but maybe Ashley or Camille can find it. But of somebody who was born with hands very spastic, like this, with spasticity. But he loved music so much, and he wanted to learn to play an instrument so bad. And so he went to piano teachers and violin teachers, and this was in Europe. And I think it was in Europe, somewhere in the Western world. And the teachers would take one look at these sort of gnarled hands and say, I'm sorry, this is impossible. And then he went to India, and he found his way to a sitar, a great sitar master of that instrument. And he showed him his hands, and the sitar master said, "Oh, this is going to be quite a challenge. Let's see what we can do." And obviously it was not easy. Obviously it took tons. You can imagine how patient he had to be to learn to play an instrument with those rigid fingers, and not much flexibility in the hand. And it took so much patience and perseverance and practice. But he became apparently a great sitar musician. And I tell us, me and you, this story, because I think with this practice, it's so easy to feel like, try to meditate, your mind is all over the place, which is of course the great first insight of insight meditation, that your mind is out of control. But you don't know that when you start out. Your mind is just out of control. And then you think, I met this woman in the pool this morning, and I said, I'm going to go teach. And she said, "What do you teach?" And I said, "Oh, meditation." She said, "Oh, I can't meditate. I tried, I can't meditate." How many people do you run into who say this, right? And you understand, because when you first sit down and you aren't aware that that's your first great insight, all you see is your out of control mind, and you try to control it, and you try to make it quiet, and you try to get rid of those thoughts, and you can't do it. And so you decide, I guess this isn't for me. I can't do it. So this is these are the hands we all start out with, the mind that feels so crazy and out of control. And it is. It's crazy and it's out of control, in fact. But what we learn through the patience, perseverance, practice, the support of teachings of a community, to help us keep going, what we learn is that, it's not just about stopping my thoughts or having a mind that's under control. What's the best way to control a cow? Suzuki Roshi asked. The best way to control your cow is to give it a really big meadow, not to try and make it stay in one spot.